Hello again, I'm Cameron. You might remember me from earlier when my live Terraform demo failed. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to be really quick. We just wanted to show a little tool we built for treating Swarm as a project dependency. Like Milos touched on this earlier, you know, Swarm right now is moving really fast, not afraid to make breaking changes, and that's awesome. But when you're dealing with you know, dApp developers, people who are mainly JavaScript and front-end developers, getting them to, you know, having to get Swarm and build Swarm and run Swarm, and not just that, but understand, like, oh, you know, which version of Geth do I need to check out to get a specific version of Swarm, and is that version of Swarm the right version for the branch of this dApp that I happen to be working on right now? And so after, you know, a couple of times of helping some dApp developers track down what we thought was a problem, and come to find out that it was just an incompatibility, like they were running, you know, too old of a version of Swarm, and the SDK was for a newer version of Swarm. We just ended up building a little tool. It's called a Swarmer. It's open source. It's on the mainframe HQ GitHub. And what it does is it allows you to just describe, like, the version of Swarm and the options you need to start Swarm up with in a YAML file, and then you can keep that YAML file just checked in with your dApp or whatever project you're using that depends on Swarm. Right now, Swarmer, it's super early in development. It's just something that I wrote and some developers at Mainframe use. So to install, you do need it. You need Golang. You just go get, you know, GitHub Mainframe HQ Swarmer. So that's how you install it. So hopefully in the future it'll just be some binaries that you can install through various methods or whatever. But if you keep that Swarmer.yaml in version control, then no matter what version of the project you check out and you're working on, that Swarmer.yaml is also versioned, and you'll be able to start up the proper version of Swarm. And it makes it so developers that really shouldn't need to be worrying about that can just do their job. And I'll show you. I just kind of started these things before I came up here so we could be quick. So this Swarmer demo directory I've got right here, is that large enough? Is that all right? So if we just pretend that this Swarmer demo is some code some Git repository you're working on that relies on Swarm, like you need Swarm to develop against and test against. You see I've listed the directory here. It's not a real project, obviously, so I've just got the Swarmer.yaml in there. And my bash history is not doing great. But if we look at this Swarmer.yaml, there we go. I have a giant Emacs configuration, I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. So this isn't all of the options, and not all of these options are required. It's just kind of a base thing to look at. The repo here, I mean, it's obvious. You're just telling it, you know, where Go Ethereum is. Checkout is which version of Go Ethereum to check out. That can be a tag, a hash, a branch, you know, whatever you need. And then here in the near future, when Swarm releases can get split away and you don't need to even have Go Ethereum possibly, then we'll change something and make it very obvious what you do. Another cool thing about Swarmer too, especially just like for a JavaScript developer, you can call out the number of nodes you want to run. So like for locally testing communications or something, you can say, hey, I need 3 Swarm nodes or 4 Swarm nodes, and it'll fire up 3 Swarm nodes in a container. It will go in and automatically peer them. They'll all be peered together, they'll fire up, and they're running and ready to go. You can either use Geth or you can, you know, use Inferior or whatever you need for your ENS API if you need that. If you don't have to call it out. It will also run Geth if you wanted to, or you don't need to. You know, you can call that, I think it's false by default. This add directive, it will actually add any directory you want into each Swarm container, in case you need files in the Swarm container for some reason. The logs, you're basically naming the logs, and it will put them in the standard place in another directory named after the container it spins up. If you don't want logged files and you would rather just see the output when you run Swarmer, you can set follow to true, and it'll just follow the swarm logs. If you run just one node, so when you start Swarmer, everything will be on default ports. The ports will be mapped, so it's spinning up Docker containers. If it's one node, then the gateway is on 8500. You don't need to worry about where things are. I started. Yeah, here we go. I started 3 nodes right before I came up. And so the initial output just shows you information you might need to know about each node it started up. For example, here's the gateway port for this particular node. And so you can go, I should have already done this, sorry. And so all 3 of those nodes are accessible just like you'd expect. So that JSON output you get is also really handy for like CI/CD processes where you might need to do some integration tests. So your CI/CD scripts can grab that JSON and know how to contact every one of those nodes, and you can run comms integration tests or whatever it is you need to do. So just a simple Go tool, simplifies development, at least for the people in our office. It's been really handy. And really that's it. There's not a lot more to demo. Yeah, it's pre-alpha. It's super early, but it does work. If you end up using it and you like it, please contribute any features you want to see or any bugs you find. Currently, it only works on Mac OS and Linux. It's not working on Windows yet. Because I don't and never have owned a Windows machine to even test that on. So if you like Windows, please make it work on Windows or test it on Windows. And help us out, help us make it really cool. So now questions for Milos about Erebos, Shane about Mainframe OS, and I'll answer anything you want to know about Swarmer.